What is up, nerds and nerdizzles, and welcome to the channel. My name is Shalina, and today we're going to go over, too far, who I would argue to be one of my all-time favorite assassins in Heroes of the Storm. Technically speaking, my highest level character in the game is Nova. She is, I think, around level 62 or 63. Greymane is a level 50 for me, though, and he is, I would argue, the one assassin that if I was stuck playing any assassin for the rest of the time that I played Heroes of the Storm, it would be Greymane. On a mechanical level, he is not an easy hero to play. In compositions, he's not an easy hero to play either, because the thing is that certain compositions can shut him down. If there's a lot of hard CC, if he doesn't have a way to get some help to escape, like a cleanse or a leap of faith or something like that, Greymane can die. Players who are getting used to playing Greymane can die pretty quickly if they don't know what they're doing. So this video here is meant to be a sort of beginner to intermediary level guide for people who are playing Greymane. I do not profess to be a pro at him, but I have spent a lot of time on this hero, and I can definitely give a lot of tips and tricks to make this hero good. So what we're going to do is we'll start by just going ahead and setting the level up to 20, and I'll go over the talent tiers real quick and explain the pros and cons of each talent.
Choose a talent.
And we'll make our way over to the dummies here so I can kind of show off a little bit of what we're talking about. So if you have not seen Greymane before, just if you have just bought the game and then eventually just bought the hero or whatever, or if you just bought the game and you're a huge WoW fan and immediately bought the hero, whatever your fancy or flavor is for buying him, we'll go over his kit real quick. Baseline, his trait is that Greymane has two forms. Human form, where all of his attacks are at ranged and he can sit back kind of safe, and he also transforms into Worgen form, where he turns into a werewolf, or in this case, a lumbering behemoth, and he becomes an auto attack assassin. Now, if you're watching the bar at the bottom here while I'm doing this, you'll probably have noticed that Greymane's abilities change a little bit. So his Q changes and his E changes. Dark Flight, which is your E, is what predominantly will get you into your Worgen form. You leap forward and do a little bit of damage and then follow it up with an auto attack. And then from this, you've got Disengage, which will cause you to roll in a target direction and transform back into a human. This is the main way throughout most of the game you're going to be shifting from one form to another. Now the benefits, in case you weren't seeing it, of having these two different forms is pretty simple. In human form, you've got ranged attacks. Now, that cannot be overstated because of how critical it is for you to stay safe when you're auto-attacking. So you are going to do a lot of poke, both with your auto-attacks and your Q, in human form. However, when you're ready to go in and deal damage, you jump in Worgen form. So we're doing about 341 to 343 damage a second there. Let's leap in. Now, I'm doing 454 damage per auto-attack, and I have 10 armor. My health pool, though, if you'll notice, does not change no matter what form I'm in. The thing about that's important for me to distinguish, and why I'm pointing it out so heavily, is that with Greymane, people see this character that, oh, they're doing damage, they're doing damage, they're doing damage. Oh, the other team's got some low players. Let me jump in because I'm a melee assassin. You're not a melee assassin. I have to browbeat people's heads with this a lot when I'm trying to explain Greymane. There is a literal thing in the Heroes community called Greymane Syndrome. And it's literally because players who are starting out with Greymane or have played him for a little bit but aren't used to him yet have this tendency to dive in. They see a target, they want to jump, they want to go in, they want to, mess them up, they want to do damage. The problem is, odds are, your damage is not going to be as much as you think it is. And when you commit to diving in, you have a 5-second cooldown before you can get out of there. So the thing is, sad to say, that's 5 seconds for you to die. That's basically what it is. JHow put a video out on how to play Greymane, and he went over just one build path. I'm going to kind of go through every single talent here and give you multiple build paths to potentially play him with. But he put it this way, and it was really well done. However much you think you need to hit E to play Greymane, like to dive in to do damage, it's probably too much. You're probably diving in too often with Greymane. The whole point of this hero is that he's a poke hero, so if you're going to take anything away from this video, one of the first things is dive less. If you're there to jump in and confirm a kill, go for it, but otherwise, dive less. Second thing that you need to know about Greymane, a big one, is that there's one ability across his entire kit, other than his heroic, that does not cause him to change forms and does not change between the forms, and that's your Inner Beast. The way Inner Beast works is pretty simple. Baseline, Greymane's attack speed is 1 attack per second. That is one of the slowest of any hero in the game. Baseline. Now, other heroes have ways to augment their attack speed for a little bit. Jim Raynor, Vala technically can get Rancor at 20. Tychus has Master Assassin at 4, so if he gets stacks, his auto attacks just passively get faster. There's lots of little things here and there that can help to increase an auto attack speed of an auto attack assassin. But more times than not, they have some kind of trade-off or some kind of requirement or some kind of level requirement overall, like a level cap or whatever. Greymane has a baseline. His auto attack speed goes from 1.0 to 1.5. And as you'll notice, every time we're auto attacking, we have a little timer here. The reason why is because Inner Beast gives us 50% attack speed for 3 seconds, but every time we land a basic attack, we reset this timer. So as long as I basic attack within 3 seconds time, I can get it really low. I can get it incredibly low. But as long as I'm basic attacking at least once every few seconds there, then we reset the duration on the timer. Also, you'll notice the ability says a 20-second cooldown, but the cooldown there I think was like around 6 or 5 seconds. That's because every time we land an auto attack, on top of refreshing the full duration of our Inner Beast, we're also internally cutting the cooldown by 0.5 seconds. Which means, doing some quick math here, if you divide 20 by 1/2, that's the same thing as multiplying 20 times 2, which gives you 40. You would need, in theory, without any talents or anything like that going on, at least 40 auto attacks on anything that is an enemy unit of some kind to get a full reset on Inner Beast. The thing about that is that with Greymane, you're probably not going to get 40 attacks. But at the very least, you want to land about 20, or else you're going to have a really bad time. If I hit this and then do nothing with it, full 20-second cooldown. Some heroics in the game last about 20 seconds long before they reset. That's really punishing and really bad if you're a Greymane player. So the only other thing that you need to take away from this video, bare bones minimum as a Greymane player, if you have never played him before, do not let your W just activate and then you do nothing with it. Don't ever let that happen. Always find something to use your W on. Always find something to activate the ability and then use it on. Even if it's something like taking a camp, or pushing a minion wave, or helping with a boss, or whatever. Auto attack something. Don't waste it. And at the very least, if you can, try to get to 20 auto attacks. If you're at like 18 or 19, that's not terrible. But the minute you start getting over 20 without any kind of changes or talents or traits or anything, you're golden. So, let's start talking about the different forms real quick, because the only things you really need to know about are the E and the Q before we get to the heroics. And the heroics don't swap your forms back and forth. They just transform you into one form depending on the heroic, and you stay in it. So, your E is Dark Flight. It's got a pretty decent range. I think that's like a range of 4 or 5. Is that in his auto attack range? Yeah. So that's a range of 5.5 in game, whatever the distances are for that. It causes you to leap on a target. You deal 193 damage. Not a lot. Your basic attacks without boosts are hitting for almost double of that, getting close to it. So it doesn't do a lot of damage when it leaps in. But the big thing to note with this is that when you leap in on a target, you always immediately follow it up with an auto attack. So ideally what you're going to be doing with Greymane is when you're going to dive in on a target, we'll see how much burst I do here. We can do about 1,000 damage, 1,100 damage of burst in a very short window of time at 20. Greymane's health is only about 4,500. So you did about 20 to 25% of the damage to like another ranged assassin. That little combo and that little iteration is usually what you're going to do to try and finish a target off quickly as Greymane. There's other things we can use as well, but that's the general combination of abilities you're going to use in order to leap on a target and get a kill. That's a lot of damage you can put out in a small period of time. But if you sit there on the target, you're not going to really be able to do a lot of damage to them. Because you're probably going to die because you don't have a huge health pool and you only cut down all damage you take by 10% from all sources. That's cool. Doesn't save you, and it doesn't make you a melee assassin. But regardless, Dark Flight is a way to get in on a target to do damage. And then, as you probably noticed, our Q is a little slash move here. It's called Razor Swipe. This causes us to leap in a direction, slash in front of us, and do damage to everything we hit. That's the basic premise of our abilities. Our E is called Disengage when we're in Worgen form, because it changes to that. This gives us a small roll that puts us in any direction we want. We can get aggressive with it, we can get defensive with it. I'll talk a little bit about that a little later. And then in human form, the last ability we need to go over is our Q, which got replaced from Razor Swipe in Worgen form to Genn Cocktail in human form. This ability's got a little bit of a weird pathing on it. So the way it works is simple. You throw this little vial in front of you. If it hits nothing, it does nothing. It doesn't leave anything on the ground, doesn't do any damage, does nothing. However, if we're able to connect with it, it does a very small amount of damage to the first target. You can see, I think it was like 121. Yeah, and then it does that small damage to the first target and then splashes in a cone behind every other target that it hits. This is a really good tool to help snag kills, to poke heroes down, to do a lot with. We'll get into more nitty-gritty details on how to use this properly as well later. I'm going to jump ahead to the heroics. First one is the big flashy one, go for the throw.
Choose a talent.
No matter what form you're in, you will shift to Worgen form, and you will jump onto a target, do multiple slashes, and at level 20 do 778 damage. So you'll run up, you'll hit him. And just like when you use Dark Flight to jump in, after you've used Go for the Throat, you will hit the target with an auto attack afterwards. So let's do this and toggle cooldowns. So let's say you're going to jump in on a target to try and get a kill. I'm going to say it's this guy here. You're going to go E attack, Q attack, Greymane attack. There you go. Without any other kind of augmentation, we did about 2,700 damage almost in that short of a time frame. That's without any buffs or anything whatsoever. Which, I mean, there was a slight buff from a talent it took, but you get the idea. The damage output's not going to be that much of a difference. You're looking at about 2,600 to maybe 2,700 damage in that quick of a burst. A lot of people like Go for the Throat because it's flashy. It can get you a quick kill. And another part of the ability that's really cool is when a target's got low enough health, they'll have a little skull icon above their head. That means that if you hit Go for the Throat on the target, it immediately kills them, resets the cooldown on Go for the Throat, and you get a free cast of it in the next 10 seconds. This is a great finisher tool, and that's kind of what Greymane's kit is built around. Somebody put it really eloquently on, I believe it was the Heroes of the Storm forums or Reddit, one of the two. People tend to think of Greymane as this big initiator. He's not. He's a finisher. Greymane is basically Edge from the WWE. He's the ultimate opportunist. His job is simple. Poke, do damage. The minute you smell blood in the water, you go for the kill. That being said, though, sometimes you're not going to be able to get all that burst damage in on a single target. And admittedly, Go for the Throat's more of like an assassin or a support killer. What do you do about tanks? What do you do about high health targets that are causing lots of problems? This is where Cursed Bullet comes in.
Choose a talent.
Let me just grab these talents real quick so I don't mess anything up. Cursed Bullet is a skill shot that puts you into human form. So, say I'm in Worgen form and then I want to use Cursed Bullet. It immediately puts me into human form when I activate that ability. The way Cursed Bullet works is it is a skill shot, so if you miss, it hurts. But you can see here that the skill shot is almost as long as our Q with the explosion radius and everything. So you got quite a bit of reach with it. You just gotta line it up pretty quickly. You gotta give it a little bit of room and timing so you can fire it off. Because as you can see, there is a bit of travel time to it, so you do have to be cautious of that. The way Curse Bullet works is that the first thing it hits will take damage equal to 35% of their current health. And it's only on a 30-second cooldown. This thing is bonkers strong. If you're going against targets like Stitches, Diablo, especially now with his auto attack build, Deathwing, Garrosh, Asmodan, anything that's got a lot of health or tends to have some resilience in a team fight, all you do is point and click this, 35% of their health just got popped. That's a lot. That is a lot of health for you to shred off of a target that just jumped in on you or is trying to protect their backline or is trying to do anything. So if you're worried about compositions where they've got a dive-heavy Pyro, Curse Bullet's really good. If you're trying to be the cleanup crew for your team, go for the throw, it's really good. Because the thing is that people make this bad mistake when they're playing Greymane or like any other auto-attack assassin. They have a tendency to say, oh, well, there's a tank right on top of me or like getting close to us, but I need to be damaging the assassins. No, you don't need to. You've got heroics like Cursed Bullet in your kits, that way you can shred those tanks. Just attack the tanks. Fire Cursed Bullet into them, shred them, keep attacking them. Make them run away so that way your team can push up. Maybe you can make something happen. The thing about Greymane is he is one of the strongest poke heroes in the game. You just need to make sure you play him in that mentality. So,
Choose a talent.
real quick, let's go ahead and talk about his talents. Since I've already rambled on long enough about his base kit, I'll get more into like tips and tricks and stuff near the end of the video, but let's talk his kit. Almost every single Greymane talent is good. I know some people have doubts about certain talents later on, but believe me, they are all really good. Your standard build is going to look something like this. I'm going to run through it really fast to explain it, and then I'm going to go and talk about some of the alternatives. You have an auto attack build, so either Viciousness or Wolfheart goes into this, followed by either Thick Skin or Eyes in the Dark. We'll talk about that in a second. I'll do Eyes in the Dark because it's standard. Quicksilver Bullets or Wizened Duelist. We'll do the bullets. Heroic depends on the enemy team. We'll say Bullet because Johanna and Diablo are a problem right now. Running Wild or On the Prowl. We'll say Running Wild here though. Eager Wolf, Executioner, or Alpha Killer. All of these are actually really good, and I'll kind of explain in a minute why. Consistently though, we'll go Executioner, and then at level 20 we usually will go Huntsman's Blunderbuss. So why this build? Well, simply put, the reason why is because with this build we're able to maximize Greymane's poke potential. With his level 1 talents you have Wolfheart and you have Viciousness. Viciousness is probably one of the best beginner-friendly talents to take. In fact, if you are new to Greymane, just play this build every single time until you get used to him, and then you can start experimenting. Just always play this build. This is really solid for a beginner. It's one of the best builds even for an intermediate player. The thing about Viciousness is that normally on our Inner Beast, the only thing we can do is land auto attacks. And if we stop landing auto attacks and the timer runs out, we just have one of our best abilities on cooldown. Viciousness gives us an extra second on it and makes it so that any damage we do with any ability to any enemy thing refreshes the duration. That's
Fort shattered.
interesting. Refresh forts. Toggle minions. Let them do their thing. We'll just let them do their thing. It's gonna be whatever. The thing about going with Viciousness is that it also causes our abilities to do damage. Literally the only thing that doesn't do damage in our kit is Inner Beast. It just increases our duration of our ability to do damage. So if you land a Q, if you land an E, if you land an R in either form, as long as you do that to something before the timer runs out, you get the duration extended. Now, one thing to note is that abilities don't contribute to lowering the cooldown, but they do contribute to extending your use of the ability. So that can be really good and helpful. Alternatively, if the enemy team doesn't have a ton of blinds, and if you can stay in range to poke at them a lot, I actually like Wolfheart better. I've had a couple games where I've had to be the offlaner or I've had to be the camp grabber. Like, that's what I'm good at. That's what Greymane is in general good at. He doesn't have the sustain to do it, but he's got the raw damage to do it. And the thing is, Wolfheart can be really good. This basically takes the need to do 40 auto attacks and turns it into 20 auto attacks. If you're a more adept Greymane player and you're not going against a team that will blind you, then you definitely want to try and take Wolfheart. Wolfheart, I think, is the more consistent talent. I think it's the stronger talent. But because of the fact that so many tanks now have blinds and you have so many heroes with blinds, you've got, Cassia, Artanis, Mei, Johanna, Lily, just to name a few. Valera technically can take a blind on her 13 talent, so if you get stunned, you then can't do damage after the fact. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that blinds you nowadays. It makes playing Wolfheart tough, but if you spend enough time on him, like I have, and you sit down and work on it a bit, then this will be easy peasy to do. Just stay at a safe enough distance where you can poke literally anything, tank, support, assassin, whatever. Just stay back, poke away, and then you're good to go. When you work on camps, don't jump into Worgen form super quickly necessarily. That's actually kind of a weird thing to talk about because Greymane hits so hard. It actually is more beneficial if you want to get the full value off this to just stay in human form and dodge attacks and stuff. Otherwise, you still can hop into Worgen form, and if you at least get about 10 to 12 auto attacks, it makes it worthwhile. But otherwise, it's good. It's really good, but it's about the same effectiveness as Viciousness. Just this can come off cooldown a lot quicker if you tend to do a lot of camps. So, there you have it. At 4, either of these two talents are viable. I don't recommend Insatiable because it just gives you auto attacks, or gives your auto attacks 10 mana regen per hit. That's cute. Greymane doesn't really have mana issues usually, so you don't usually have to worry about it. Whereas instead, Thick Skin, whenever you go into Worgen form, you get 10 flat armor. Well, then you get another 50 armor on top of that as physical damage reduction. So it only lasts for 2 auto attacks, but the thing is that if you're jumping on like a Jaina or a KT or a Kel'Thuzad, or heck, maybe you jump on a Stukov or a Leoric, those are heroes that have slower hitting auto attacks. Leo and Stukov are heroes that hit really hard, so you kind of don't want to take the nasty damage from them anyway. But the big point being that sometimes this helps you give that tiny bit extra survivability when you jump in to let you secure a kill and then get out. If you're playing against like Genji, Tracer, obviously, Tychus, heroes like that who have really fast hitting auto attacks, don't take this. It's not worth it. Even if there's other heroes you could really benefit from this from, the minute you get into a team fight with them, it's a dead talent. So just keep an eye on who you're taking on and know that maybe you shouldn't take this. Alternatively, a well-rounded one and the safe one to take for anyone that's newer to the game is Eyes in the Dark. The minute that you go from being in Worgen form to human form, where you need to disengage out, guess what? It puts you in stealth. It only lasts for 3 seconds, but it lets you escape the ability for enemies to auto-attack you. Now, obviously, heroes like Vala and... there's lots. Vala, Jimmy, technically Tracer and Hanzo, but not so much. There's a lot of heroes that they've got abilities that they can just throw an ability out and, oh, hey, would you look at that? You're knocked out of stealth again. But at the same time, all auto attacks that are happening to you when you activate the roll stop happening. So somebody has to then follow up with an ability to knock you out of stealth. And sometimes that extra second to second and a half of not taking damage might be enough to get you out of a bad spot and help you live so that way you can fight again. So Ice in the Dark, all around, really solid talent. At 7 is where things get spicy. If you're a new player, let me tell you right now, just take Quicksilver Bullets. The reason why you take Quicksilver Bullets is because your range becomes 6.6, which means that your auto attacks now become much further away. Darkflight got enhanced too from my abilities. Basically, the point of taking this is because it's not flashy, it doesn't show off anything, but the thing is, it makes you a safer player. It makes you a much safer and consistent auto attack hero. And the thing about Quicksilver Bullets is that all around, it's just a good talent. Again, not flashy, not big pog in chat plays or anything like that, but It's just makes you better at your job, which is to poke and do damage. That being said, for the intermediate to advanced players, let's talk Wizened Duelist real quick. As you can see on the screen for everybody here, every 6 basic attacks against heroes make it so that you increase your raw basic attack damage by 1% up to 30%. Every time a Worgen basic attack lands, it counts for 3 auto attack hits. So you can either hit somebody 6 times in human form, or you can jump in Worgen form and every 2 auto attacks count for the same stack. Wizened Duelist, I would argue, is the best talent on this tier. The only time that I would highly recommend against it is when they have a team that can easily jump on you. So like Sonya, Chen. Mal'Ganis tends to be really good at being able to just jump forward and then slash people with his claws. D.Va can jump all over you. Heroes like that, heroes that can come in and disrupt and either use CC or get a lot of damage off or do things like that. Those are the kinds of heroes that make it hard to use Wizened Duelist with. But even then, if you're a good Greymane player, you can still find a way to make it work. I had a game playing against a Johanna. I never died once with Wizened Duelist and got up to like 26 stacks or something stupid like that. The thing about Wizened Duelist is that it scales you so well over the course of the game. It causes you to hit exceptionally hard. The trade-off, though, is you are still at that shorter than average range. Lots of other heroes in the game have bigger auto attack ranges than you do, or they have talents that scale them into bigger auto attack ranges than you do. But the thing about Wizened Duelist is that it trades that off for raw damage. In fact, in a lot of my games, I almost would argue you always go Wizened Duelist. The trick with it, though, isn't that it does the more damage. The trick with it is not dying with it or not dying a lot with it. Because the thing that I've done in the past is I have picked this up, even at like a level 35 to 40 Greymane, gone into fights, died, and then freaked out that I died and lost all these stacks I had of Wizened Duelist. So I was like, oh my gosh. And so I would start to get more dive heavy to try and get the stacks back. The thing you need to understand is there's a reason why it's called Wizened or Wizened Duelist. There's a reason for that. You need to be smart about when you go in human form and when you go in Worgen form. The only issue I have with this talent is it is kind of baity. It makes you think, well, for me to get the full effect off it, I want to be in Worgen form. And that is true to a degree. But your game plan with Greymane stays the same. You poke and then you dive only when you can get the kill. Remember, our dive, just on Dark Flight, with our dive, auto attack, Q, auto attack, that combination of everything still hits really hard. And right there is 2 auto attacks in one hit. Yeah, it's only 1 stack out of 30, but it's 1 stack. That's more damage you're going to do in the next fight, and then the next fight, and then the next fight, and then the next fight, until you die, and then you lose half the stacks that you've accumulated so far. So the thing is, if you can keep this up, if you can just poke repeatedly with Greymane and follow it up with dives to get kills, maybe you stay in Worgen form a little bit longer to hit a tank because you're trying to punish the tank, and then you roll out to safety, or whatever it is you're doing. Just make the smart plays with him and use your mind a little bit. Be wise about the fights you pick and take. Be a wizened or wizened duelist. And you will get a ton of stacks, and you'll do a ton of damage. And even against, like, oh my god, I did play one game against a Diablo on the enemy team who went auto attack heal build. Auto attack heal build is obnoxious. Diablo just doesn't want to die. This helped me outscale the healing he could do. I literally went Curse Bullet, I went Wizened Duelist, and I went his level 16 in Worgen form where you shred like 3 or 4% of the target's health per auto attack. I decimated him. Like, team fights would happen, pop the bullet, jump in with Inner Beast on, and just start ripping into him. And he would have to run away. And what would I do? I wouldn't try and chase after him and get the kill. I'd back up and keep auto-attacking. It's these little tips and tricks and things that you'll learn playing the hero over time that will help you so much in the long run to more consistently get the picks and kills you need. That being the case, let's go ahead and talk about his level 10s real fast and talk about when you pick them. Again, kind of said it before, heavier, dive-heavy front lines or front lines that are just really hard to kill, take Curse Bullet. Against more squishier teams, go for the throat. The only thing I'm going to say about go for the throat, the only important thing I'm going to say at least, is with go for the throat, you need to not be so scared to use it. I've seen a lot of people that play Greymane be sitting there and there's a target that's low, but not insta-kill low. And the Greymane's not diving in. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, what are you doing? Dive in with Dark Flight, hit go for the throat. If you can get an auto off in between that, cool. But dive, go for the throat, Q, and get an auto in, and you get a kill. And people will be like, well, but it doesn't reset. It doesn't need to. This is a finisher ability, but it doesn't mean that you have to finish with it. This just does a huge chunk of damage like that, so you can jump on a target and go. So don't be scared to use go for the throat as a finisher, even if you don't get the free reset. If you get the free reset, cool. Follow it up on another hero if there's someone else around, and you can do it safely without dying. But don't waste go for the throat just because you can't get the free reset. Like, don't sit there and let it sit there doing nothing when you could have possibly gone in and gotten a kill with your abilities, just not go for the throat. At 13, we've got two really good talents and a really meh talent. Running Wild. This is what's increasing my range on Dark Flight. Dark Flight's range goes up by 35%. This is big because it lets you jump in from a further distance away, but the more important thing about it isn't so much the engage as it is the disengage. Being able to dive away from enemy fights or from bad situations further from Worgen to human form is big. It gives you so much more safety and security. So this is usually the standard pick for a lot of players because it's just a really nice safety net. However, in the same vein as if you're using Wolfheart a lot because, you know, the team doesn't have blinds and they don't stun lock you down into oblivion or displace you and CC you into oblivion, I'm actually a bigger fan of On the Prowl myself. And the reason why is pretty simple. Activate Inner Beast, and if it's been up for more than 3 seconds, if it's been up for 3 seconds or longer, you get 30% movement speed. That puts you at 130% movement speed. That makes you mount speed movement. That's a lot of speed. And you know what that also means? That's chasing power. In some team fight situations, enemies are going to be trying to run away from you. Well, if you've been using Inner Beast and poking away at them, then you're able to chase certain heroes that are really important ones, like range assassins, supports, whatever. You're able to chase them down and get the kill by having Inner Beast up and On the Prowl moving. Plus, what's great is that if you get close enough to the target, you can follow up with Dark Flight and an auto attack. And even as they're running away in Worgen form, or running away from you in Worgen form, you're able to keep pursuing them and smack them once here, smack them once there, and possibly get a kill. Plus, your Q helps you to close the distance. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But overall, for consistency's sake and not enemy team dependence sake, Running Wild is the safe pick. To explain really quick about Unfettered Assault, why we don't go for it, it just makes it so that whenever you're in human or Worgen form, the lunge distance on this, which is already okay. To keep in mind the distance you actually go, you can kind of see the slash marks there. That innermost slash mark is all the distance you go. You don't lunge forward very far. This greatly increases the lunge and then makes it so that when you're auto attacking in Worgen form, you cut the cooldown of Unfettered or your Razor Swipe by quite a bit. The thing about that makes it tricky though is because we get so much of a benefit off our auto attacks, there are instances where you'll have your Q just sitting there off cooldown and you don't want to use it because you'd rather just be hitting much harder in your auto attack form as Worgen. So awkward ability, not that good. I wish they'd find a way to make this more appealing. Maybe if they gave you like 2 swipes instead of just 1. I think that'd be really good. And just have the cooldown be the same. That'd be kind of cool. But otherwise, it's whatever. Plus, on top of that, anything that's kind of a Worgen form talent buff, with a few exceptions, is kind of bait, but we'll talk about that in a minute. 16. All 3 of these are viable. and nobody can tell me otherwise. Because here's the thing. Executioner is your most well-rounded ability, and it's safe because what it's doing is, hey, this target has some kind of status effect on it. More times than not in a competitive team composition, and a lot of times in quick match, believe it or not, your team will have slows. It will have stuns. It will have roots. It'll have things that will debuff the enemy. And if they're slowed, rooted, or stunned, and Greymane gets any basic attack, human form or worgen form, off on them, he immediately gains 30% more raw basic attack damage for 3 seconds. That hurts. That hurts anybody a lot. So this is just a standard safe pick. Pairs well with Jaina. Pairs well with Kira. Or not Kira, sorry. Pairs well with Uther, Garrosh. Pairs well with Orphea. Pairs well with lots and lots of targets in the game to help you do lots of damage. And all you have to do is continue to attack a target that's slowed, rooted, or stunned. This also pairs well with Mei, because Mei slows them and then stuns them. So, overall, really safe baseline ability. In the situation where, again, you've got lots of time to auto-attack, then you follow that up with Eager Wolf, which you need to keep Inner Beast up a second longer, in this case 4 seconds, and your auto-attack speed goes from 1.5 to, I believe, 1.9? I'll test it in just a minute here to be safe, but it goes up significantly. It makes it so you're firing out a lot of auto attacks, and that's a lot of damage for Greymane. I'm pretty sure I said this at the beginning of the video, but if I didn't, I apologize that I'm saying this now. Greymane has one of the hardest hitting basic attacks in the game on an auto attack assassin, so why not do it more often, more quickly, if you get what I'm saying. So this is really good. Alternatively, though, people usually say worgen form abilities are a bit of a bait, and I can kind of see why, but I unironically love Alpha Killer. When you go into worgen form, basic attack, steal, bonus damage equal to 3% of the target's maximum HP. I mentioned it before, there are certain tanks in the game right now that are just obnoxious to deal with. They have a lot of health, they can take a lot of damage, they're just difficult to kill. Alpha Killer actually helps with that. If you're going against a Cho'Gall, nobody likes Cho'Gall. This is great against Cho'Gall. This does mean that your full value tends to come in more when you have a team that can keep you in worgen form longer. But even if all you're doing is you jump in, get like 4 or 5 auto attacks off, guess what? That's what, 12 to 15% of the target's health, on top of the 35% you just ripped off, on top of your ability to then step back and throw Genn cocktail or other stuff at them. It adds up. Now, admittedly, this is always safer because this works in either form, whereas this is specifically worgen form, but this still can do a lot of work with the right team setup around it. So don't underestimate Alpha Killer. It's probably the weakest one on this tier, but it's still exceptionally strong, and I highly recommend it. Level 20. This is where we get just a tiny bit spicy, but not by much. Genn Roulette. Now, whenever you use Curse Bullet, it's on a 20-second cooldown instead of a 30-second cooldown. But the overall damage it does to the enemy target's health, instead of doing 35% of the target's health, it now does 30% of the target's health. This is cute. You can do a lot of damage with it if team fights last for a while. But Greymane's kind of a blow-up hero, so cutting the cooldown while cool doesn't help a lot when you need to snipe off one key target. So I really don't like Genn Roulette in any build that I do. I can see the value of it. I can see it being a good talent to take, but just not in this instance. Tooth and Claw. Worgen form basic attacks cleave. Razor Swipe's damage is doubled. This is meh. The thing about Tooth and Claw is that you need to have a team composition where you can group them up together and get them low quickly so that when Greymane does activate worgen form and jumps in and starts attacking them, and his auto attacks start cleaving, they can do a lot of damage. Now, Tooth and Claw can combo with Alpha Killer, but the amount of time you need to stay in Worgen form to make them both benefit off each other like in a huge way means you're in a lot of trouble, probably. So, the thing about Tooth and Claw is that it's not that good. This is a bait talent. Alpha Killer, at the very least, has some viability for when you need to just say, no, I'm done dealing with this tank, we're going to kill him. And you jump on the tank, you kill them. Tooth and Claw, you're expecting the rest of the team to stay clumped up on the tank. The tank is usually in by themselves. If not, they're in with like a bruiser. Not worth it. Huntsman's Blunderbuss, though, is very worth it. You may have been seeing before that my auto attack is hitting one target. Watch what happens now. There's now an explosive cone behind the target when they're getting hit by my auto attacks. And actually, yeah. This is really good. This is basically close to the same range as a Genn cocktail. Every auto attack. Every auto attack. Genn cocktail per auto attack is crazy good. And oh yeah, by the way, max level, we're doing what, 324 damage per second? Genn cocktail doesn't hit for more than maybe 100 more damage. Okay, actually, I'm a little off there. It's what, 157.5 if I'm doing the math right. So it does a little bit less damage per auto attack, but this goes on a 9-second cooldown. This is happening 1.5 times every second. So this is happening 3 times every 2 seconds. So by that logic, we're getting off, what is it? 12, 13. It's like we're getting like 14 or 15 Genn cocktails off in the same time Genn cocktail has to go off cooldown. Basically. I know I'm doing the math really quickly in my head right now. I know that's not smart to do, but the point is that this talent just makes Greymane's poke that much better. And in combination with Quicksilver Bullets, that's a lot of poke from a really safe distance. This is the go-to, like, 95% of the time at this tier. It's really strong, it's really consistent, it does a lot of damage, and it makes people's lives a living nightmare. If you want to give people PTSD, though, and you're a god tier Greymane, let's talk Unleashed. So, I didn't really think about this too much because I saw a little bit of like what the ability did and then just kind of wrote it off in my head as to how it works. Let's get specific here. Go for the Throat's damage is increased by 25%. So at 20, you're looking at 780 damage. So, oh gosh, I'm having to do math on stream. I'm not going to do that.
Fort crumbles into dust.
It's interesting that it does that. So let's just go ahead and say 780 divided by 4. Let's tack on the 780. So go for the Throat, according to the math that I did, which is a little off, I know, but close to it, is doing about 975 damage with the 25% damage bump. That's pretty good. That's 1,000 damage almost on anyone, and usually this is on like squishier heroes that you're going to do this on. What I failed to realize when I looked at this ability is if Go for the Throat kills its target, you refund the mana cost and reset the cooldown of Greymane's abilities. This is rewind on a reset. This is literally if you kill somebody, you rewind. This is Li Ming's trait, tied specifically to a heroic. This is really good. Like, really, really good if you can combo it correctly. Now, one thing you'll remember from before, though, that I've talked about was that, hey, you don't want to just be throwing this ability out only when you can get a kill with it. You really want to throw this ability out when you can get a target low enough that this plus some other stuff can get a kill. Taking Unleashed, though, changes the math up a little bit, because the thing is that you can go for the throw to target, kill them. You're in Worgen form, and if you didn't Dark Flight to get the kill, then, or even if you did Dark Flight to get the kill, and then you do Unleashed Dark Flight, which is turned into Disengage, which is on, I think, like a 5-second cooldown on the transition, that all of a sudden immediately resets, and you can roll right back out and start attacking again. So you could be hitting a target from a distance, throw your cocktail, poke them a lot with your auto attacks and Inner Beast up, Dark Flight in, go for the throat for a kill reset, disengage out, keep poking them, throw another Genn cocktail, or, because go for the throat's still up, if there's a second squishier target, you can Razor Swipe over to them, land an auto attack or two, or disengage towards them, land some basic attacks in human form, wait for Dark Flight to come off cooldown, Dark Flight in, do a Razor Swipe with some auto attacks, go for the throat, you reset again. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's kind of like Zeratul with, I want to say Might of the Nethrezim, but I know that's wrong. Might of the Xel'Naga. If you do Might of the Xel'Naga, like the 20 version of it, or if that is the name of the 20 version, you start to do some pretty crazy stuff. This is what makes Greymane's kit so good, is that there's the potential for some big plays. Now again, the fact that it's tied to getting a kill, not super great. The damage up on it is really good, so you can execute targets a little more effectively. But it just makes Greymane's kit overall really scary. So that's it for the auto attack build. I know that took, holy crap, forever, but there's only one other build we're going to go for real quick, and I'll show it off here really fast. It's Cocktail build. So the point of taking Cocktail build is if you're on maps like Tomb of the Spider Queen, just because there's a lot of stuff that pushes up in waves. You get lots and lots and lots of spiders a lot of the times, and you can get some thick waves that way. If you have an enemy team that has like 1 or 2 key frontliners that are like really covering up the back line, on maps like Infernal Shrines is really good. Braxis Holdout is actually really good, because Braxis Holdout you typically have like the Zerg wave pushing, and then the enemy team will move with the Zerg wave up and be like sitting in the wave to try and stop damage from coming in. All those things are what make the Cocktail build really good, because the point of the Cocktail build is you're going to maximize the amount of damage that your Q can do to the enemy target. Now, you don't have a way to buff the initial damage, but you can buff the explosion damage with the build. And the way that this still works with Greymane and works really well is that your abilities give you more poke distance. So in this case, you see the distance on Genn Cocktail. Well, at level 1, you can take Perfect Aim. Gives you 30% more range, and gives you mana back if it hits an enemy hero. Doesn't seem like it's a lot, but I'm pretty far away from the target, and the explosion is still going to catch everybody there. That's a really long distance to safely poke somebody from. I don't even think Garrosh, with his stupid ground slam, can catch you here. Like, it's really good. It's really good. Excuse me. So it gives you a much safer poke with Perfect Aim, it gives you mana back, and it does splash damage to everybody. The only downside of this is that because they nerfed the cone distance, it's not as good. I think if they added on, like from here, you can kind of see how the cone goes through half of the third target dummy. Oh, actually you can't. I apologize. If you look at this, you can kind of see how the cone goes through like half the target dummy at the very far end. The one on the far right there. I think if it went past the target dummy just a little bit further, it would make Cocktail build competitive. But as of right now, Cocktail build it's okay. It's not stellar, but it's okay. Again, on those maps that I named off before, you really want to take it because it is very good there. If you've got auto attackers that have to get kind of close, like Cassia, then yeah, it's good against them too. It's just a great poke build overall. Targeted more for splashing onto the backline than dealing with whoever's up front, but still good. And even if you go Q build, you're still doing a hybrid of an auto attack build mixed with some Q talents. So make of that what you will. Level 4, still one of these two. Eyes of the Dark is really safe. Level 7, Incendiary Elixir. So it cuts the cooldown from 9 seconds to 7 seconds, and makes it so that every time Gilnean Cocktail hits heroes in the explosion part, which is not the initial hit, but the little explosion area, that cone afterwards, for each hero hit, it ups the damage of the cocktail's explosion damage by 20 up to 300. So you have to hit 15 targets with it. But your Q at 20 does almost 500 damage. You're attacking on another 300 damage on top of that. That's almost 1,000 damage. And if you can hit the 15 heroes with it, it goes on a 5-second cooldown. That is a lot of poke. That's a lot of poke you can do with just your Q.
Choose a talent.
In fact, in a single Q, hitting 3 targets, we did almost 1,200 damage. That's not bad for a Q on a 5-second cooldown. Same deal here, pick based on what you're doing. If you're going with this build, there is no need for you to do On the Prowl or Eager Wolf. Ideally speaking, you're going to go Running Wild. You're going to go Executioner. I'm not sure why this is favorited there, but whatever. And then Huntsman's Blunderbuss. Your attack range is not as safe in the auto attack build as it is in the Q build. Or it's not as safe in the Q build as it is compared to the auto attack build, but it's still really good. It's still relatively safe, and it still makes you a huge threat, because instead of being able to auto attack at a certain distance, you're able to now just outright poke. Just constantly throw Qs out at them. If they step up too far, they can auto attack. And guess what? Now, at 20, with the Blunderbuss going as well, it's like you have a Q, or a Gilnean Cocktail firing on your auto attacks, and one that you're throwing at yourself. Oh, sorry guys. So the Q build is viable. It's got its own place. It's just that it's not as viable as the auto attack build, because the auto attack build is much safer. Now, as far as tips and tricks on Greymane go, I'm going to start by saying this. There are going to always be more tips and tricks to learn. I highly recommend checking out a pro to learn all the nitty-gritties if you can. But if I'm going to recommend anything,
choose a talent.
let's actually go auto attack build here. And I'll fix that real quick. So Viciousness, Eyes in the Dark, Quicksilver.
Choose
we'll go for the throat. Burning Wild, Executioner.
Choose a talent.
Cute, but we'll just do Blunderbuss because that's safe. So, one of the first things that you need to understand about Greymane, I already said it a lot before, but I'll just repeat it one more time. You're not diving in to get a bunch of super cool damage on your Warden farm. You're using your Qs and your auto attacks to poke the enemy team down before you jump in and finish someone off. That also includes minion waves. So, when you're approaching a minion wave while as Greymane, one thing you really want to do with him is you want to clear the wave quickly. You're going to activate your W. So as you're landing auto attacks, which this isn't a good example here because I've got the Blunderbuss bot going, but before you get Huntsman's Blunderbuss, you're going to just stand there and auto attack safely from a distance if you don't know where an enemy is. If you look at the minimap and the entire enemy team is split between the other two lanes, to quickly clear the lane up, it's simple. We'll let the mini wave come up. You're going to go Q, auto E, and you're going to jump in and do auto attacks in Worgen form and use Razor Swipe as a way to clean it up. Then, the reason why you do that is simple. When you're in human form and you're staying back and you're poking, you have a better chance of poking and then possibly running away, but you're also vulnerable. Because if you're in human form and you get caught at all by an enemy team, there's no escape. You have no disengage tool whatsoever. Disengage is tied to your E. And the only way to activate disengage is if you're in Worgen form. If you're in Worgen form, then you have a better chance of being able to get out of a bad situation. But you would just go Q, auto, E to dive in, use a Q to quickly hit the backline, always get the archers and the mage so that way you get the regen globe and clear out the harder hitting minions first. Toggle minions, reset forts, there we go. You want to do that specifically for those consistency reasons because you want to be able to quickly clean the wave up and then rotate out. And by being able to just go Q, auto, E, Q, you can then roll away, get out of the lane, go rotate to do something else. One thing about being in Worgen form that I'm going to do real quick is if you've got an enemy team coming after you and your disengage is on cooldown, or something's going on where you cannot easily get away, or you need to dodge a skill shot, your Q actually has significant range. You can actually, let me stand next to one of my minions here, go a pretty decent distance. This is from the outside of this minion here to up to here. It might not seem like a lot, but that extra distance could be you getting out of a skill shot, or doing this when you're running this way. So, sorry, we're going this way, do that. You might have just dodged like a Frostbolt or an Ice Lance or something like that from a Jaina. So, or Frostbolt, my bad. You might have dodged a Frostbolt from Jaina by doing that, or a snipe from Nova, or maybe KT's trying to throw a gravity lapse at you and you just dodged out of it. Use your Q as a mobility tool, not only as a way to get out of a bad situation, but also as a way to keep up with an enemy. Let's say that you jump on an enemy hero and you're auto-attacking, and they're getting away from you. Q after them. You can use it as a way to pursue them. Also, something to do as well as a Greymane player in terms of engaging into fights and stuff. When you do engage, sometimes you have to kill a key target. So when you're going in, and you're going to pick a target off, one thing that you need to do and need to know about is being able to keep pursuing the target to get the pick. So let's say, just as an example here, this target is who I'm after. I jump in, I attack them, I'm chasing after them a little bit, I back off, but the target's still up and we need to get that pick. You do not have to exclusively use disengage as a way to escape from a bad fight. Sometimes the target's here, then they dance around up here, and then you need to roll away so you can get the pick. Roll to one side and attack them. If you can, as well, whenever you're using your disengage, don't just disengage in any old random direction. Try, if you can, to disengage. Let's say the target's here, their bruiser or their tank steps up to here. Disengage in a way that you can throw Genn cocktail, hit the target in front, and get the splash damage on the back. Remember, your explosion damage is what does the bulk of the damage. Also, early game to mid game, man, go after them. Go after the targets. You'll get into lanes with people, and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm playing a Malthael, or oh, well, I'm playing a Dahaka, or X, Y, or Z. There's no way you're going to be able to get a pick on me. Then you jump in on them and start doing your auto attack damage. They realize, oh, I made a mistake. You're pursuing them a bit. Roll over, Genn cocktail in. The explosion radius is enough. You can actually catch people out, especially when the wells are up closer. Like, you can catch people out and be really surprised at the number of kills you can pick playing Greymane. Your Q is a great finisher. As far as engaging in a team fight, though, when you're going in to jump in on a target, you're going to want to play poke game for as long as you can by throwing out Qs, by throwing out auto attacks, doing things like that. But when you're ready to hard commit and actually dive in and get the pick, usually your sequence is going to look something like this. Throw a Q so that, well, you're going to want to throw a Q so that you hit the explosive damage onto like anybody on the front line. It hits, and then you're going to want to leap to your target, auto, Q, and auto. By doing that combination of things, you get not only the potential almost 500 damage on your explosion from your Q, you also get the almost 200 damage on your leap. You get the 300, or how much is that? 454 damage from an auto attack, 276 from a Q, and then another 454 from another auto attack. So your sequence is going to look kind of like this. So we'll say we're going after this assassin here. So we're going to go Q, E, Q, auto, Q. Well, okay, so its total damage is 3,000, and that's including what I did here off the cocktail to the first target, plus some of the splash damage. But you get the point. Your poke can do a lot of damage to a target, and then when you jump in and start bursting on them, you can rip them apart quickly. I'll say it one more time. Don't be scared to use Go for the Throat if it means you can pick up the kill. Just Q, E, auto. Ah, messed up there a little bit. Let this run out.
Let me handle this.
We'll toggle cooldowns real quick. So we're gonna go Q, E, auto, Q, auto, Go for the Throat.
This is a hunt.
And that's a way to get a lot of burst damage off really quickly. Something you may have noticed here. I have not been showing you anything with Inner Beast on. And there's a reason for that. It's because this ability should be pretty close to Fire and Forget as far as usage. As a Greymane player, the hardest thing to balance is keeping an eye on it. With this build here, with having Viciousness at 1, you should not have to focus on it too much. Just think in your head, what have I damaged recently? And if you can't think of something you just damaged in the last second or two, find something to hit, and you'll be fine. If you're going for Wolfheart, you really need to just focus on poking at whatever's closest to you more than anything else, and avoid getting blinded if you can. But for the most part, Wolfheart is very set and forget. You're going to activate it, start attacking a target, poke away, poke away, poke away. Clicking here, game. Keep poking, keep poking, keep poking. Q, E, auto, Q. Oh, it was off cooldown. Or it was on cooldown. But you're just constantly whittling away at them. Alright, so here we go. Poke, 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 Q. That's usually what the build's going to look like when you go for that kind of a setup with Go for the Throat. That is the whole point of this build, is for you to maximize the damage output that you can from poking. Poking will always be your best friend in more instances than not. If you are unsure of what you should be doing on Greymane, then you should not be committing to a dive. If you feel confident enough that you can get a kill, then just keep an eye on what heroes are around the target you're going to try and jump onto, coordinate with your team, and dive in and get the kill. Greymane is, I would argue, very vehemently, I think, one of the best auto-attack assassins in the game. The reason why he might not be at that level is for maybe only one or two reasons. The first being survivability is a bit of an issue on him, especially on an inexperienced Greymane. People that don't know how to play him effectively will die a lot, and you only get the 10 armor and the Eyes in the Dark stealth or the 50 armor for 2 auto attacks. So there's not a lot of traits in there to help Greymane survive. But he hits harder than almost any other assassin in the game. He does some of the best damage of every auto attack assassin in the game. He's got some of the best poke in the game over almost anybody other than Hanzo, because frick you, Hanzo, with your Q build. And above all else, mechanically, he's one of the most rewarding heroes to play for an auto attacker. The only other downside to Greymane is literally something I've already mentioned. It's not so much the survivability or the escape or any of that. It's just that he's hard. You can literally pick up Jim Raynor, Fala, Hanzo, Phoenix. I could probably come up with a few other heroes, especially right now Cassia. Lots of those heroes you can pick up and play. They're not nearly as tough to play, and you do a lot of damage. Like, without even having to think that hard, you do a lot of damage. Greymane requires much more mechanical skill. You need to be able to angle yourself so that way your Qs will hit something, so that way the explosion damage will do the damage to the target you want. You need to make sure your W is up. A lot of team fights and for clearing out really important stuff. You need to know precisely when to dive in and when to get away. You need to know when your heroic will do enough damage with everything else to get a pick. Or you need to save your heroic to get a kill so you can start getting resets and then get even more kills. The thing about Greymane is he is an opportunist that can work exceptionally well if you know what you're doing. If you're struggling with playing auto attackers, do not pick up Greymane right away. I gave a build that's for newer players to get into, but the thing is that Greymane is just like Jim Raynor, just like Vala, just like a lot of other heroes in the game. Positioning still matters. So I would not recommend picking up Greymane if you still have not mastered mechanical ability on auto attackers just yet. But if you like the role and you want a challenge and you want one of the most arguably fun and rewarding heroes to play, give Greymane a try. Now, obviously, this isn't his default skin, but I mean, I can't not have the Rick and Morty skin on. I can't not have the Rick and Morty skin on. So, anyway, that's the end of the Greymane dance. That's the end of the Rick dance in general. I think I'm going to be done with this video. Thank you for coming in and watching this. If you've got any kind of comments or recommendations you want to make in the comment section below for the video, let me know. If I missed something, let me know. I'll make an amendment. But that's Genn Greymane. That's a very comprehensive guide on Genn Greymane. Again, if you want some good resources on people going through and explaining things a little differently, check out JHow's channel. Check out some of the pros that play Greymane. Listen to what they have to say. This community is awesome. People out there are willing to help. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and tab out and call it a day. Peace.